Bond order, do you want to read these?
Yes.
Relative to the following projects: Barry Park Field reconfiguration and improvement, 75,000, Breed Park Courts, 150,000, City Hall flagpole, 20,000, City Hall service and fiber optics, 350,000, City Hall steps, 250,000, Clark Street playground, 50,000, Cook Street playground, 60,000, Fraser Field roof, 390,000, Fraser Field turf, 200,000, Fry playground and courts, 60,000, Gallagher playground and courts, 98,000, Green Army, the Republic facade, 150,000, Lynn Commons bandstand rehab, 225,000, Lynn Commons fountain repairs, 75,000, Lynn Commons fountain repairs, 75,000, Lynn Memorial Auditorium air conditioning, 600,000, Lynn Woods entrance restrooms, 100,000, Magnolia playground and courts, 50,000, McManus Field, 400,000, miscellaneous school repairs, 50,000, protective office glass barriers, 75,000, Sagamore Street playground, 50,000, Seaport Marina repairs and wave attenuator, 500,000, the Sheridan Street playground, 22,000.
I'd like to open the public hearing for anybody wishing to speak in favor. I'd like to recognize Her Honor the Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Judy Kennedy, 23 Buchanan Circle, the Mayor of Lynn, and I'd like to speak in support of this bond. Councilors Cahill and Crichton came to my office probably about 3 months ago with initial discussions on this bond. They had explained that they had met with several of their colleagues on the City Council and had come up with a list of projects that they thought would be beneficial to the City of Lynn, and I'm sure there'll be more discussions, so I'll keep my remarks fairly brief and broad on this. But that there were a number of projects throughout the city that could be undertaken while still staying within the confines imposed by the charter of a $4 million bond. As I'm sure many of you know, our charter, which was written in 1978, authorizes the City Council to approve bonding up to $4 million. After $4 million, it has to go to a vote of the citizenry. Now, obviously, in this day and age, you can't buy what you could buy in 1978 for $4 million. So we only had a limited number of projects that we could include. And I thought that that first list was a pretty good starting point, but it didn't include some of the things that were needed around other places in the city. And I think maybe they weren't just aware of them. For example, our City Hall servers are now several versions out of date, and the result has been that the email system in City Hall crashes almost every other day. We had a gentleman from Guardian Technology, who is our IT consultant, come in, one of our IT consultants, and he explained to us that in order to fix our server problems, what we have to do is very similar to what happens when a new bridge is being built across a waterway, in that you have to reconstruct, well, you have to construct the new bridge, and then little by little move all of the operations over to that new bridge and eventually shut down the old bridge. So in essence, we can't be piecemeal about fixing up the servers in City Hall. We're going to have to reconstruct all of the servers in City Hall. Likewise, the City Hall steps, I've had many conversations with Mike Donovan about the stress that has been placed on the City Hall steps over the years. It turns out that while the top of the steps are in good shape, if you go down underneath those steps, as Mike Donovan has done with his engineers and consultants, you can see that the rebar down there is crumbling. And I think Commissioner Donovan is rightfully concerned that with the increased traffic that we get with the concerts being used at City Hall, and with the number of people that are going up and down the steps in a relatively short period of time, we want to make sure that those steps are safe for everybody to use. A lot of these are for public areas. I know there was some discussion about, oh, Ward X is getting this much money and Ward Y is getting that much money. This is not a piece of pie that we can carve up 11 equal ways. There are simply certain buildings that are public areas that have a tendency to be located in some wards rather than others. So I guess my first request would be to urge the council not to look at this as an issue of fairness, but as an issue of a package that will be best for the city of Lakewood. I know a second concern that has been expressed to me over the last couple of months from some of the city councilors has been that the breed windows and the tech roof are not in here. And as many of you know, the MSBA has given us an 80% reimbursement go-ahead to undertake those projects. Well, I've sat down with Commissioner Donovan and we discussed about what he had for line items. He already has $1.815 million in repair line items in his FY13 budget. I also got my free cash certified from the state last week. We're at $16.433 million in free cash. Now, I'm not one to turn down an 80% discount anywhere, and I'm certainly not going to turn it down on the breed windows or the tech roof. The problem is, because we have that $4 million limit, if we went to bond that money, that's more than 50% of the bond taken up on just one project. And I felt that it was better to do a series of smaller projects that are still very necessary, very important to the quality of life in Lynn, very important to the economic development in Lynn. So I would urge the council not to worry about where the money for tech and breed is going to come from if it's not included in this bond, because then I can assure you that project will be paid for. Likewise, I've heard some concerns that the classical sewer system is not included in here. My estimate for that is about $1 million. It may even be less than that. I don't have those notes right here in front of me. But again, that in my mind is what free cash is for. Its purpose is to take care of one-time necessary expenditures that will benefit the city by way of capital repairs or improvements. So I don't think there's any need to worry about that not being included in the bond either. And then lastly, I'd just like to say that there have been several councilors who have come up to me and they're, I don't want to say trying to horse trade, but everybody again feels like they have a pet project or a project for their ward that they'd like to see put in here. And there are a lot of quality projects. And as I said, I do have some free cash and I'm certainly willing to entertain spending that cash on some of the projects that the various councilors have mentioned to me. However, this has been a 3-month-long process that we have undertaken. There have been a lot of movement in and out as to what project will be here, what project will be there. And I think this is a pretty good compilation for the $4 million that we have to spend, which is, as I said, is not a whole lot of money. And then the last thing that I would ask you is if the council is inclined to vote in favor of this bond, if they would also consider a friendly amendment that would state to the effect that if any of these projects come in under budget, so that there's some excess cash attributable to one of these, or if there is a project that can be paid for by funds identified elsewhere, and I'll just give you as an example, McManus Field, that's a $400,000 line item in this bond, is eligible for a parks grant. We don't know if we're going to get that money yet. We don't have that money yet from McManus Field. Although I would guess that it's on the way, but we do not have the $400,000. That's the bottom line. Likewise, with the Lynn Commons Bandstand, we've put in for a grant to get that repaired. So it's possible that we can identify other funds so that we wouldn't need that full $225,000 to rehabilitate the grandstand. So I would just ask that you would, as I said, consider an amendment that would allow for any excess allocation or anything that has been allocated for that can be paid for by otherwise identifiable funds, where we could take that money and use it for other projects that I would deem to be necessary or expedient for the city. So I'm sure there are a lot of people that want to speak on this. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you'll consider a yes vote to approve the bond. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Steve Babbitt, 31 Manson Street. Very often in the city we talk about our assets, which are the waterfront, parks and playgrounds, and the woods, and I see that this list addresses a lot of those things. I can tell you that as a member of the Board of Bar Commissioners, we grant more permission to use the Lynn Commons and the Lynn Woods and any other area of the city. And right now, when we grant permission to use the bandstand, the Commons, we have to prohibit the bandstand because it's unsafe to use, and it is also a structure which is on the historic register. So I just urge the council to support this law. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ralph W. Sevenor, Chairman of the LACC, Linear Chamber of Commerce, representing about 500 businesses employing approximately 30,000 people. The LACC would like to weigh in and offer its full support in favor of the bonding request as presented. It is significant to note that the commercial tax rate is considerably higher in Lynn and therefore subject to a higher rate in comparison to residential, even though this is a bonding issue. We are also cognizant of the discussions of the potential impact of increases to the fixed income, the elderly, the residents, and the business community. In reviewing the bonding amounts in detail, we understand that the funding is directly going to projects that will help improve the appearance, viability, and safety within our city. And we are therefore enthusiastically supportive of moving forward. As we understand, it is the intent of this bond to pay for needed improvements today with tomorrow's dollars. The goal being that the increased tax base will offset or mitigate tax increases due to the bond. Projects such as improving interoperability of informational systems at City Hall, fiber optics, as long overdue, would go hand in hand with streamlining the current processes at City Hall while addressing the needs of the future in our ever-increasing technological age. Some may look at this bond as subterfuge to increase taxes without concrete benefit to the public. We look at it as a great starting point to bringing the real, tangible, and long overdue modernization to a system badly in need of significant upgrades. We need to bring about reforms to the all too frequent band-aid solutions of the past. Some may look at this as kicking the can forward. We look at it as a prudent timing for investment, which all can see benefit of today. We believe it's an investment in Lynn and a start in investing in today and the future now. Some may look at this as an inequity issue, where some project may have not met the priority. We look at it as a springboard, where all may see measurable progress working forward. With measurable progress, much more can be done. We do have one suggestion, and that is to please keep all well informed in all stages of the bonding process. Keep all informed from the start of the work to the finishing commissioning of the work. All too often, we don't see the final results other than in passing or in a footnote. The business and commercial sector, as well as all members of the community, need a clean, safe, attractive environment to increase business, jobs, and the future quality of life. We need to work for a future Lynn where we're one of the most desirable cities to live in, work in, and play in, where Lynn is known as a place to grow, get things done, and live well. On behalf of the LACC, we thank you for your time.
Jeff Crosby, I'm here as the Executive Director of the New Lynn Coalition, which is a partnership of a variety of unions and community organizations. It's not often I was a union president at General Electric. I don't always step up right behind the chamber and speak in the same voice, but I'm really glad to do that today. It's frustrating for me as somebody who moved into Lynn from Peabody about 11 years ago because of the things I love about this city after working here for most of my life, to hear the way people talk about the city. And a lot of the things on this list I look at as polishing up some of Lynn's jewels that'll make us more attractive. Things like, simple things like having bathrooms at the Rose Garden. I live in the Lynn Woods. That's why I moved here to begin in the Lynn Woods. I didn't care what anybody said about the city. I really was attracted to it and the people in it. And that simple thing like having bathrooms at the park or the entrance to the woods is it's hard to imagine how you actually do without that. The GAR building, the first time I went up there downtown, I'll bet half the people in this room haven't been there. Every time I'm with a group of folks, even who have lived in Lynn all their life, I find that most people have never visited. The first time I went up there, the third floor, it literally took my breath away. I thought, like, it's felt like you could smell the cigar smoke. The veterans had just left. And it needs to be fixed up. It's not used. It needs a facade that will make it attractive and public that people will come here. Air conditioning in the auditorium is kind of obvious. I look at this portion of the list as kind of polishing up the jewels and as things that are gateway features to the city, make it more attractive to people to come in, use the park, use the bandstand, etc. The parks, I think it kind of speaks for itself. This is making the city more livable. Now, I pay taxes in Lynn, as I said, on Thistle Street. I'm glad to know that Lynn's finances are in good shape, that interest rates are low, that the bond rating has been upgraded. To me, that all adds up. That means that this is a logical time to invest in the city. Issuing bonds is a routine thing. It's happened many times in the past. It's done by cities all over the state and the country. It needs to be seen as part of what we do to maintain our city. So I would like to see some positive results in our city as a result of our progress and our positive financial shape. So I would speak in favor of this list. I'm sure it isn't perfect. I hope it doesn't get picked apart because it's imperfect. But I also know a lot of work has gone into it. And I respect the work that the council has done, and I urge people to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ron Mendez. I'm a resident of Lynn, live on Ocean Street, and I am here in favor of this list of projects that is being proposed. It is, like the previous couple of speakers have said, and I'm sure there's a line behind me that's going to say it again, it is time to invest in our infrastructure here in Lynn. With all of that being said, I do have to say that there has been one thing that has been missing from this debate as I've seen it evolve over the last several months. And I haven't heard anybody talk about the city's capital plan. And, I have here a capital plan from another city. You can, virtually any city or town has a capital plan where they have listed all of the projects, not just what adds up to a $4 million project for this year's spending plan, but you have projects that span several years. This happens to be from the city of Newton. It's a 5-year capital plan with a 20-year projection. The benefit of having a capital plan, and by the way, it is a best practice that is recognized. I have the benefit of having been a municipal finance official for over 11 years. And the benefit of having a capital plan is that it is recognized under the bonding guidelines. The guidelines where we just received our bonding upgrade also recommend as a best practice adopting a capital plan. And it does give us the opportunity to see not just the spending plan for this year, but also the concerns of the projects that are not included in this plan, to see that perhaps they are a priority for next year or thereafter. Or maybe they're not a priority at all for some reason. But it does provide a framework for a process to decide what gets spent now and what gets spent later. And I really think that the city needs to start the process of comprehensively planning for the future, because it's something that just doesn't, it seems to be missing from this process that we've been going through today. We've all heard the maxim, planning to fail is, failing to plan is planning to fail. So I urge you to support this because we do need investment to start in the city of Lynn. We need to repair our infrastructure, but we also need to plan for the future because there is more that needs to be done as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Monica Mias, and I'm a core team member of LION, which is the Lynn Youth Organization Network, and we're a youth-led, youth-run organization, and we are the wing of ECHO. We focus on issues that directly affect youth and teens, and will everyone please invited by LION please stand up. Thank you. Parks are important because not only do they benefit the community as a whole, but it builds individual character. Our community is full, heavily diverse, and ever-expanding. We look around today and we see faces of many backgrounds. It's been proven that engrossing yourself in cultural activities broadens opportunities, starts friendships, and communication channels. The best place to do that is a neighborhood park. Growing up, I was an only child in Lynn, and my parents didn't feel that it was safe to let me go to the park because of the rumors of crime and all the activity going on. They never let me out, and I never really had anybody to play with. But I looked around to the kids in my neighborhood, and their parents let them have freedom. But they also had older siblings that participated in criminal activity. It's kind of like they didn't know what to do with themselves. They're like 5 years old. And whatever their brother or sister did, they did too. If their brother and sister stole, that's what they did. And it's kind of like they didn't have a place to find themselves. They didn't have a playground where they could openly play, openly express themselves, and communicate with their peers. But they had to follow older members and friends down a dark path. Maybe if I actually had a playground to play with, or it was more safe, I would have been more socially adept. Healthy interactions develop social comfort and ease. Being able to play with other kids develops a youth's confidence. A sense of place and self-identity are antidotes to social alienation, vandalism, and violence. 16.9% of kids 2 to 19 are obese, but let's not just blame the fast food. It's the lack of available space for physical activity. Time for recess in schools have dwindled, giving kids less time to positively interact with each other. Play supports emotional development. By role-playing or having imaginary friends, they're evading adverse consequences. They learn to simplify events and compensate for situations. It gives them an outlet to cope with their feelings, throwing their issues into harmless play. Parks also have economic benefits. The proximity of residential areas to parks leads to increased values in private land and a higher tax base, therefore spewing more local revenue. And most importantly, parks provide a refuge for youth. And as a teenager in high school, there is a large percentage of teens, like my classmates, that do drugs, that steal, that act up in school. They don't feel a need to move on with their lives. And it's kind of like we're stuck in a place, and we're struggling with our own personal identity. We don't know what we want to do. We don't know who we want to be in the future. And it's scary because we are the future of America. We are the future of Lynn. It's not have a direct career plan or a life plan. It's kind of like we're struggling. We don't know what to do with ourselves. And if we have a park or a playground or a basketball court, a lot of kids venture out there. They play, they interact with each other, they build friendships, and they're kind of like, oh, okay, I can do something positive with my life. I see kids around me that are actually moving on. They're actually planning to go to college. They're actually trying to improve themselves. And I'm just sitting here letting the whole world go by me. And it's not good to see that, because I want to be successful. I want to live in a place where I'm happy, where I'm proud of. And see all these kids giving up on life and going to jail and just doing drugs and making bad choices, it's kind of heartbreaking. And 75% of crimes are committed by a high school dropout. And we are the future. And because of all this, we, Lion, support the passing of a law to fund parks. Thank you.
What she said. Michael Victoriano, thank you for having me back. I think anything that is an investment in our youth is a great thing. I think it's about time that us as a society, we stop putting band-aids on our problems. I think it's about time that we start actually looking at what the foundation of our problems is. Heck, maybe these school shootings wouldn't have happened if they had some place to play. If they had some place with some supervision and a place where they could develop social skills and so forth. I live in Lynn, father of 4 beautiful children, and if I want to go to a playground, I gotta go to Swampscott. That's unacceptable. I think you guys should feel the same way. I'm part of the group from last summer. We went around and we cleaned up about 4 parks. We did Warren Street. We did up in the Highlands. Was it Cook Street Park, I believe it is? We did Strawberry Ave about a week after they found the syringe there. And at every single park is the same concern. Why is this merry-go-round tilted? Why is this place lacking a swing? Damn, there's no rubber around the base of this particular piece of equipment. You're damn right I'm not bringing my child to this playground because they can get hurt here. And I don't know what the laws are necessarily, but I'm sure the city of Lynn doesn't want a liability suit. Again, I don't know how this works. I'm not going to pretend I know the numbers. All I'm here to say is that an investment in our youth is an investment in the future. If we cannot save our children and provide them with the most opportunity we can for them to grow up to be civilized and productive members of the society, then we are not doing our fair share. We are not doing what we need to do as adults, as leaders, in their eyes. We need to invest more in our children. We need to keep that in the forefront. The bandstand, I drive by the bandstand, and every day I look at it as an eyesore. And it shouldn't be like that. I mean, what kind of example do you think our children take when they walk into their public park and they look at their bandstand, which has a lot of history behind it, if I'm not mistaken? And they look at the bandstand and they say, and they can't take pride in the bandstand. They treat it like any other piece of equipment that may be falling apart in any of our parks in the city. I'm just talking about the playgrounds. I would have loved to have seen more playgrounds on the list. And maybe in the future, this is why I'm here to talk to you guys about this, because I would like you guys to have this in mind for the future. Our children are our future. They are our greatest investment. We should always keep that in the forefront. And again, I don't know the numbers, but to heck with anything else, because if we can't invest in that, then it's very difficult to look towards a brighter tomorrow. Thank you.
What do you say? My name is Sheldon Pasquar. I live in the Highlands, and I'm a member of the Highland Coalition. About 5 or 6 years ago, I started getting a little bit active in the Cook Street playground, in the Ford School gardens. And as I started getting active, and as I know from just looking around, the parks are not really suitable for the kids to play in at this time. I think that's where we need to go. You plant the seeds of what you want to grow. If you plant them with your children, you'll grow better products. I applaud this whole list. I think I counted 14 separate facilities for the kids. That's huge. I was involved with one, Cook Street Playground, and I was proud, and I saw a difference in what we were doing there. I saw a difference in the garden and the vegetables that we were growing and giving to the kids. Very proud of that. I see 14 of them on this list. It's Lynn investing in Lynn. It absolutely needs to go, to happen. As far as stepping above the children and going for Lynn itself, the greatest thing I can think of is putting the air conditioning in the hall, because that, the way I see it, is great for the business community in Lynn, and it's great for the face of Lynn to other communities. I love Lynn, and I'm proud to be here. I've only been here 13 years, but I've seen it getting better. Let it out.
Hopefully I won't tilt this too far forward. This is for the ears of the councilman, everybody in the room, regardless of economic level, faith, whatever. We're all different, and it makes a rainbow in this city. It is a beautiful city. We chose to move here 13 years ago, and we just celebrated our 13th anniversary living here on the 14th of December. Compared to when we first moved here 13 years ago, the city has vastly improved. I notice every time I read the police law, it seems that the crime rate, the arrests and everything are growing smaller. That was a concern of ours, it always will be, and there was a group of like 6 of us in the neighborhood that would, is Chief Coppinger here still? Call the police station and report goings on when we saw the least suspicious kind of thing. And the police were wonderful, they'd come up and they'd check it out, and we clamped down on what was going on. So that improved the neighborhood and the Cook Street playground. In general, I look at the list and I'm amazed and I'm proud to be a Lynner. And I'm happy about the bond and I'm all for it. The waterfront is a jewel. Lynn Woods Reservation is a jewel. Our auditorium, thank you, Mayor, is wonderful. We went to see Peter, Paul, and Mary, the Kingston Trio, and Tedeschi Trucks. We've been there a half a dozen times. It's wonderful not having to schlep into Boston. Lynn is an old city. It is ready to explode into a great cultural center. There are 92,000 people in this city. We've lived in 8 different places in 43 years of marriage. Small towns that have done more or gotten more than what Lynn deserves to get. Lynn deserves to get whatever it can. Culturally, transportation-wise, with rapid transit coming in through a route that won't disturb people's houses, and give it more of an accessibility to the outside world. And I mean the state, the other cities, other communities. And generally speaking, by having the bond and fixing up the city, we are addressing the basic jewel of the city, which is its people, of which I'm one as a senior citizen. And by fixing our city up, we will take care of the people. People will come in, there'll be more money coming into the city to go beyond this list. Our city, the golden jewel of this city is its people. And by making these parks a better place, fixing the bandstand, and repairing places that we need to repair, we are taking care of its people and giving them pride. And one thing I want to say, I'm a member of the Highlands Coalition, and David Gass mentioned something very important to me. Instead of outside contractors, let's put our people in Lynn, in this city, that are out of work to work in our city.
Mr. President, point of order. Councilor Craig. I certainly don't want to interrupt anybody. I know there's a long line here, but I know the Chief of Police, Kevin Coppinger, was here as well, and I was wondering if it would be appropriate if he could speak briefly so that he can get back to protecting the safety of the city. Chief.
My apologies. Thank you, Council. Just very briefly, I've spoken to many of you over the years about parks and playgrounds and crime, and actually, I've got to thank a couple of the previous speakers. They gave us a pat on the back. Yes, crime is down in Lynn. I think that's a combination of a lot of things, including the citizens behind me, the council, the mayor, everybody working together. When I saw the list of parks and playgrounds and the recommended improvements, I thought that was huge. To me, and I've heard it before, I'm sure we'll hear from more of these other speakers, give the kids someplace to go, something to do, organize events. It's a good thing. It keeps the kids in the parks and the playgrounds. And we can dovetail that with, say, an organized sport, whether it's a youth sport or something with Lynn Parks and Recreation, get at least an amateur birth thing there. Give the kids something to do. They learn lessons, life lessons in there to stay on the good, straight and narrow. Makes my job easier. We're not tossing the kids off the street, we're not getting in mischief, they have no other place to go. So, in my opinion, if you get the parks and playgrounds up and running, maintain them. Don't forget the old broken windows theory. As we've heard before, some of these parks and playgrounds are in deplorable condition. They're going to get worse. And the good kids aren't going to use them. The kids who tend to do crime are going to use them. They're going to have their drinking parties in there. And that's going to be their base of operations. They're going to make my life, my business, the office's time. We'll be using that a lot more than we should. So I recommend that you stick with that. The parks and playgrounds will move on with this. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Dan Small, I've been serving as a ranger in Linwoods for 13 years. I'll get right to the point. There's a lot of people here who speak. Why do we need bathrooms in Linwoods? I got a few examples that kind of settle the issue. Very few of the schools can come up to Linwoods now for field trips. Those that do have a limited number of times. We have to fill the buses. Hood School's done a great job of getting up there. They've been there 3 years in a row with all the kids in the elementary schools on 6 separate days. The problem is, right now I have one bathroom that's in the park house. It's not secure from the outside. It can only be open when I'm there. And the first thing that happens with kindergarten through 2nd grade is the buses roll in, somebody has to go to the bathroom. 45 minutes we waited in line. We're excited. They only had 3 hours maybe to be in the park. We spent the first 45 minutes waiting in line to use the bathroom. That doesn't really work very well. Problem number 2, it's become a very popular place for the cross-country teams to run. I think every school in Lynn now runs up there. It's gotten to the point that we've had to have the schools actually reserve time, set a schedule. And this year we actually had to open a second course because there were too many schools that wanted to use the place. Problem is, they're coming in, they're not out of there about 5:30 at night. I'm home, my shift is over, the bathroom's locked, they have nowhere to go. They're going in the woods. It's not just our park, it's also our watershed. I don't think that's really acceptable either.
And finally, we have Linwood's in great shape. Vandalism's over. There's no real crime up here that I know of. Things are going great. We're a little bit further ahead of the rest of the city as far as rehabilitation and renovations that have been done. The stone tower is fixed. We have a top-class facility there. This is really the only thing that's missing. We need to have a place. People are coming from Connecticut. They're coming from Rhode Island to see Dungeon Rock. It's a great draw with the Scouts. They drive all the way up there, and I have to tell them they got to go back down to Walnut Street to go to Dunkin' Donuts to go to the bathroom. We really need to have 2 bathrooms up there that can be open, that are secure from the rest of the building, that people can use. Thanks. Thank you.
Billy Devon, athletic director, proud to be athletic director at Lynn Classical High School. Long-time Westland resident. I've lived in Westland my whole life. Married a beautiful girl from Westland. I got 4 kids, all going to public schools. But I'm here because the Breed basketball courts and the Breed tennis courts need to be fixed badly. I want to bring up a couple, to me, $150,000 in the scheme of things is a small project that will serve tons and tons and tons of kids. I've got 12 members of my boys and girls tennis team with their coaches here tonight from Classroom.
You want to stand up?
I do want to point out something about our girls' tennis team. 3 out of the last 4 years, they've qualified for the state tournament. It's remarkable. Not only are we known as a city that's great in hoops, great in football, we got great tennis here. Unfortunately, when they qualified, we were a higher seed than the other 3 schools. We could not play a home meet, a home match, because our courts were not up to the standards of the MIA. We had to go on the road 3 times. I felt bad for the kids, but we had no alternative. A couple people mentioned about the Band-Aids. Let me tell you something, Lisa and Eric and the DPW, they bent over backwards for us. They're down there all the time trying to patch the cracks. The cracks are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now I'm here advocating for my tennis teams, but I drive by the courts every day. Let me tell you something, I just saw Jeff Bird, he walked in. Those basketball courts, if you drive by there in the summertime, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids playing basketball. It makes me happy to see that. These kids deserve for $150,000, they need, like Mr. Carpenter just said, they need a place to go and play ball. Our tennis kids need a place to go and play tennis. Please support this bond. I feel strongly about it. It's been a long time coming. I know I went in front of the Park Commission in 2010. I've been to community development in 2010. It's 2012 now. That those courts down there in Westland are not getting any better. They need to be fixed. Also because of the injury factor. And pretty soon our tennis team is going to be displaced. We're going to have to find a place to go and play tennis. Look at Manning Field. Look at Fraser Field. Look what they did to the city, what you guys did to the tennis courts in English. Those are unbelievable. Those are great. I'm jealous. I'm sorry, I'm jealous. I really am. Gowdy Park, great tennis courts. We got to fix the tennis courts, and I know I'm reiterating this, but we need to fix the tennis courts in Breed. We need to fix the basketball courts, and things will be great. Thank you very much.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Charlie Gallo. I reside at 650 Boston Street. I'm a 4th-generation Lynn resident, a taxpayer, and a member of the Lynn School Committee. And I want to say first that I appreciate that the school committee generally does not involve itself in city council matters, and likewise appreciate that the city council, except for in areas of especially important areas, involve itself in school committee matters. As I discussed with both the council president yesterday and my ward councilor, I feel compelled to speak in favor of this bond because it would be of such benefit to our youth and such benefit to the future of our city. The proposed bond includes more than $1 million in projects that would directly benefit our youth. These include improvements to fields, courts, and playgrounds at Barry Park, Breed Park, Clark Street, Cook Street, Fry, Gallagher, Magnolia, Sagamore Street, Sheridan Street, and McManus Field, as well as some improvements to our schools. Many other projects would partially or indirectly benefit our youth, such as improvements to Fraser Field and the Lynn Commons Bandstand. Our youth deserve a safe and quality infrastructure both during and after the school day, whether that's for school-related activities, after-school programs, or simply for recreation. The lack of such infrastructure will result in the short term in a shortage of positive outlets for our youth. This may contribute to boredom in some instances. It may contribute to gang involvement in others. Furthermore, the future of our city requires that our youth have safe and quality infrastructure. Lynn needs for its youth to want to continue to reside here, to work here, to own a home here, to raise a family here. Investment in infrastructure for youth will, I believe, be a contributing factor for an adulthood decision to stay in Lynn, preserving its social, economic, and artistic potential. So I urge the City Council to approve the proposed bond for the benefit of our youth, for the benefit of the future of our city. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Good evening. My name is Brant Duncan. I live at Commonwealth Road. I'm also a teacher here in the city, and I stand here in support of this investment. And I think it's appropriately titled. It's an investment in our students and our kids here when we look at the parks, we look at the schools, and we also look at the playgrounds. So I think it's our responsibility to do that. I will be brief. A lot of my comments were already mentioned. It's also investment in our schools, as I said, but let's keep it going. We have a responsibility. I think we're on the right track. When we're looking at the Marshall Middle School, let's build a new Pickering Middle School. Let's build a new Cobbett Elementary School. Let's build a new Tracy Elementary School. So let's keep the momentum going, and thank you. Good night.
Good evening. My name is Dexter Bishop, and I am the president of the Civil War Roundtable at the North Shore. Lynn, we have been meeting at the GAR Hall for the past 20 years. I'm also a junior vice commander of the Department of Massachusetts Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War. We have used the building, the GAR building, for department officers' meetings and various ceremonies. I am chaplain of General Landry Camp 5, Sons of Union Veterans. We hold our meetings at the GAR Hall here in Lynn. And I'm here to speak on behalf of that part of the bond that is supporting that issue there for the GAR Hall. And also I would speak a little bit to the bandstand as being a very important part of the history of the city of Lynn. As you can see, I've invested a lot of my life in the area of the Civil War and its studies and all that it stands for, and also in the issue of the Grand Army of the Republic. As that, I am also chairman of the Lynn 150th Committee, and we're in our second year of a 5-year process of celebrating the 150th anniversary of the Civil War. It's the 1861 to 1865. And also, as part of that celebration, we are looking at Lynn and celebrating Lynn's contribution to that war. A very pivotal war in our American history. That war changed so many different avenues of life, and also spilled a tremendous amount of blood. It was one of the most bloody wars that we've ever had. So it's an area of our lives in this city that we, as the descendants of those who fought that war, need to remember and need to keep the whole issue before our children. For some of you may or may not know that we do have kids come down from the schools to the hall, and we have tours, and we take them through and explain all the different bits and artifacts that you can find there. We also run a training program in conjunction with the teachers. We've been doing this now this will be our third year, in which we invite teachers to come in and we make presentations to them on various aspects of the Civil War itself. And hopefully they will take that back into the schools and generate interest, because that's what we are trying to do, is generate interest in this period, in this city, because we have a rich, rich history. We've been pulling pictures off the wall and looking at the individuals and then looking to see what they have done. There are books down there that will answer a question as all of the GAR halls across the nation had a question which was, what was the most memorable moment in your time in the Civil War? And you would get all kinds of things written in there. One of them that just came out the other day was a 14-year-old kid who got into the war, was ordered to climb a tree. He got up to the top of the tree and he got shot out from underneath him. His most memorable moment. That second before as he came down the hard way, thought he was a dead kid. But he survived and came back to Lynn and was a productive citizen. Now we talk about the GAR itself and what those veterans did for us. Because today, your veterans organizations are basically all built around how the veterans of the Civil War built their posts. How they did the lobbying, pensions today for veterans. It was the Civil War soldiers that, when they came back, they banded together and they pushed and got pensions for the veterans. You talk about your social network. They took care of their own. I was reading an article, it appears to be in the Boston Globe in the 1890s. And in this article, the commander of the post was talking about how, as they were getting older, they knew that they would be gone soon, and their legacy would go also when they were gone. So they were making plans back then on how to take care of that legacy. The first thing they did, because many of you may not know this, they owned the Lynn Theater, which was down off of Market Street years ago. And they sold that, and then they used the money to take care of the boys. Those boys, as they got older, they had less and less to take care of themselves. They weren't able to work. And so that whole social fabric that we see today starts with these guys. So as I look at Salem, they have their witches. We have a GAR hall, a Grand Army of the Republic hall, a hall that is absolutely a jewel. We've talked about many jewels tonight. But let me just read. This is a couple of letters here. And this is from the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, Office of the Commander-in-Chief, Charles E. Kuhn, Jr. And he had an opportunity to visit Lynn and find, as he calls it, the Lynn GAR Hall in your fine town. What I found there was a historic landmark filled with treasure trove of artifacts from the most decisive time in American, if not world history. You are quite fortunate to have such a jewel in your community. I am writing you today to express my concern over the condition of this cherished landmark in your community. And then he goes on to expound on his concerns. Another letter which comes close to home now, and that is from a Lynn English High teacher, Tim Ring. Many of you may know him. And this is what he says. I am writing in support of the GAR building and museum in Lynn. I first walked into the Grand Army of the Republic building about 20 years ago during a holiday open house sponsored by the trustees. After the tour, I was amazed that such a magnificent building exists in this country, much less in Lynn. The building appeared as if the veterans of the Civil War had simply locked the door upon passing. of the eldest members, much like a time capsule forgotten and overlooked for decades. Today, the faces of Lynn's Civil War veterans look down. I want to say this again. Look down on the visitor with anticipation that the citizens of Lynn will do the right thing to protect and preserve Lynn's history. As a teacher of history in Lynn English High, I assumed the responsibility of connecting Lynn's teachers with the GAR Museum and the Lynn Museum, conducting professional development workshops, bringing dozens of teachers to these museums would hopefully result in the teachers returning with their students to share a pride in Lynn and an appreciation of Lynn's past. The term pride also connotes care and concern. And I have since heard of many field trips to both the GAR and the Lynn Museum. The reason for this letter is to ask the city of Lynn to do what it can to promote, preserve, and protect what is perhaps the city's greatest historic asset, the GAR building and museum. In conclusion, I would just say, I got one more. All right. I just want to say this. Lynn's 150th, we're going to have it again this year out on the Commons, and we're going to be doing a few special things for the city via the Sons of Union Veterans, so I hope that you'll all have a chance to come.
I thought one of them, I locked them.